And as difficult as it is to say this, I believe this is God's way or the universe's way of sending a message to this generation. Because for so many years, we have kind of brushed under the rug so many of the issues that have been percolating in communities all across our nation. And we can't continue to do that, because when Trayvon Martin happened, I'm going to be honest with you, I thought what has been happening in Ferguson was going to happen then. I shared it with people. I said, I'm so afraid that it's going to be rioting, and it has now happened. So it's not a surprise to me. I'm not shocked. I'm troubled. I'm disturbed. But I believe there's hope in the situation in spite of it, and I believe that we have a philosophy and a methodology that my father utilized that works, and is very much needed. And we've got to figure out in this society, because it's not just about the protesters and the provocateurs, it's about law enforcement, it's about elected officials, it's about the whole nation understanding the importance of adopting nonviolence as a lifestyle.
What are the issues that you feel like are percolating that we haven't really been addressing? Is this
well,
racism?
A lot. It's racism, and it's a lot of economic injustices. I mean, you're dealing with a community that I understand. You know, you have some obviously, if you have that many people out protesting as constantly as they are, there's probably some unemployment, a lot of unemployment there. A youthful community, that median age I think is somewhere around 31 or so. Jobs, opportunities, and a voice in the electoral process. Some of that is people have to be educated about their citizenship responsibilities. So registering voters and helping them to understand the importance of not just voting, but staying engaged in the process as well. And I'm sure Captain Alvin can speak to the peculiar issues there of racism and that's deeply embedded in St. Louis, but that's all over our nation. I mean, we're still very divided between black and white, and we haven't really confronted head on the whole issue of race relations in America and how it particularly impacts black males.
Do you think race relations have improved since your dad's day?
Oh, certainly. I mean, certainly there's been an improvement. Obviously, I mean, let's look at the fact. Buddhist monks, the monks were there. Whites are there with those in Ferguson protesting. They were there in the movement, but you know, there's sympathy all across the world for this movement, and so yes, there's been an improvement in race relations, but I think the systemic, the institutionalized racism that oftentimes has nothing to do with just the color of one's skin, but the policies and practices that have been embedded now in a lot of our institutions and even in law enforcement. And so we have to go in and unearth that, but it takes training. It takes education and training, and that's what nonviolence does. It helps to get people to really start looking first within, and then as we look within, it flows outward, and it helps us to improve those policies and practices.
Well, it's not necessary to have people look like you policing your community, but desirable. Because what we look for, as I was a commander of a district, I look for people treating people right, I don't care what color you are. So therefore the attitude has to be that we respect you, and that we're here to keep the peace and make the peace. So therefore, yes, we need people that look like us in the community, like you saw Captain Ron Johnson. There was a communication, they understood. We understand in our culture, we understand how to talk to people that look like us. So all that's a benefit. Not that some other people don't, but we need that mixture just to be fair, just to make sure that we feel fair, because the perception says that the system's not fair when you have one-sided color. And perception in the matter of the perceiver is fact. So no matter what you say, when people see that system and it doesn't look like you, then you begin to get suspicious and you begin to think the system's holding back. So there's a lot of benefits of having people of color in law enforcement, and we tried to do that in St. Louis. They said, well, if you live in St. Louis City, you have to be a police officer to live in St. Louis City. And then they say they were not able to get qualified, so they went outside the city. The young man that in Ferguson, I think, lives 25 miles out. There's some benefit of living close to the community, understanding the community. And so
Who lives 25 minutes out?
they say the officer that's supposedly did the shooting. So we need the police. The police cannot stop crime. It takes the community and the police. And when you isolate the police, and there are some things that have happened in the involvement of policing, because it used to be the police had the power in the community. When I came up, there was no police brutality. The police did what they wanted to do. The politicians supported them. Then we went into Miranda rights, that we had to give the people the rights. Then we went into community policing. So there's a history of how this United States came to where we are now. There's a history of how Ferguson got where it is now. And so we've got to uncover that, because we've just been covering over, balancing the problems and never dealt with the educational level, the economic level, the dropout rate, the traffic arrest. I'm from St. Louis. We didn't go to those areas because we knew it was traffic, and they didn't have traffic tickets and speeding, and they did not like black folks. I've seen that whole area out there. So there's a history behind that whole metropolitan area, and we've got to go to the cause of this and not the symptoms, because as I was telling Dr. King earlier, that her father said that society breaks your leg and then persecutes you because you're crippled. And we have broken some people's legs in this society, but not given them education, economic opportunities. We haven't given them the right fare in the criminal justice system. And when Hinckley shot President Reagan and paralyzed Brady, here in Atlanta, a radio announcer said, in the United States, I would rather be rich and guilty than innocent and poor. So we've got to fix that criminal justice system, because it's not fair. It is not fair. And this system is the best we have. I've been all over the world, but this is the best we have, but we can do better.
In the movement that my father led, they obviously they had an ideology that everyone subscribed to, nonviolence. They had a strategy, and they had a strong communication system so that the rumors that may have been percolating could be quashed. And it seems that that's missing now, that the genuine protesters may not be getting the right kind of information that they need, because, sometimes when you know what's going on, like happens, at least for the last couple of nights that I've seen, you can make better decisions as to whether I need to be out there, because if I'm a protester and I'm legitimately doing that, and I know that there are provocateurs and they're just trying to distract from what I'm doing, well, I may make the decision that, well, I need to protest during this time of the day, and I'll come back, and because it looks like every night they are showing up trying to provoke things, and they are taking things away from the real issue. But if people are not adequately informed, and there's not a structure organizationally to keep people cohesive in this, then you're going to have all this manner of confusion that exists right now.
What Dr. King did, he appealed to the hearts of people of goodwill, not just the color. And there's more people of goodwill will come to your aid, but they're not going to come to your aid when you're fighting the police and shooting at the police. So he was a master strategist, Dr. King. And so this is not a black problem. Black people can't solve this. It's a people problem. And he lifted that issue. And so what we teach is, how do you appeal to the hearts of people? How does a Detroit woman, Viola Uso, sit in her house and see Selma, Alabama, and drive down 800 miles for 5 children and say, I've got to be there? That's what Dr. King, brought out. Not just black people. He brought everybody out. So this philosophy appeals to your heart. You can't sit there and see that injustice done in your television. You have to get up and do something. So we teach how do you do that? You can't do that through fighting the police and burning down buildings.
We talked about the attitudes. Maybe the attitudes just aren't quite right.
That's where the training comes in. We have to sit them down with the community. We train with police, community, gang members, teachers, NGOs, and we say, okay, what is the attitude? In police training, we asked, is the conflict you're in the problem or your attitude toward the conflict? and most officers that I've been say, it's my attitude toward the conflict, because your attitude toward the conflict will dictate your actions.
Sure.
So therefore, we've got to share with them, like Dr. King said, it starts internally. What are you doing to escalate the problem? We have some officers that can walk into a conflict and escalate it. They can create a riot in the cemetery, or they can walk into a situation and diffuse it. And we teach them alternatives. And how do you diffuse that conflict? How do you diffuse somebody that's angry? Captain Ryan Johnson did it, and I told Dr. King we need to do a nonviolent analysis on him. There was a young man with a mask over his face, and he was talking angrily at the captain. And Ryan Johnson, in a few minutes, he took his mask off and they were communicating. And I'm saying, you know, that's what I'm talking about. The man was very angry, and because of the captain's response, he diffused that. Now, he could have escalated it or diffused it. The power in the conflict is you, not the other person.